Hello everyone, welcome to ServiceDesk Plus Masterclass 2023. We're in the first season and the second episode, and we're really excited to bring to you ServiceDesk Plus and explain to you how you can design and deliver exceptional services to your hybrid workforce environment. I'm Steffi Benjamin, and I will be your trainer for this session. Before we begin, I want to go over a few housekeeping items. All attendee lines are muted by default. So if you have any questions, you can use the questions panel on the left side of your screen and share them to us. At the end of the session, we will have a Q&A where we will address all your questions. And if you miss any part of the masterclass, don't worry, a recording will be sent to your registered email address in a couple of days. And at any point, if you have any feedback or any questions, feel free to drop them to my email address on screen or to hello@servicedeskplus.com. So I want to initiate a quick poll for everyone here. So kindly take a moment to tell me if your organization uses a single service management platform for different departments like IT, HR, facilities, and so on. This is just to get a quick feel of the audience here. Thank you, everyone. We'll show the answers to everyone so you can see here that a majority of you do have a single service management platform in place, which is really good for you. I hope that this session will enlighten you further on how you can hack away the various features in your single service management platforms. And for those of you who do not have it yet, we hope that this session will give you a good idea on what you can expect. So as we jump into the session, I want to talk about Zilker. So Zilker is a fictional use case. We use Zilker to understand how the features in ServiceDesk Plus can be applied in a real-time organization. For the sake of this session, Zilker is a semiconductor design and contract manufacturing company, and it's planning to expand its R&D division both onshore and offshore. So the higher management has decided to onboard employees for both hybrid, resident, and even remote work as well. And so they have kept a very flexible hiring program in place. Now, since they are offering multiple work models, the onboarding team at Zilker is obviously um, uh, completely caught up with trying to manage all the tasks involved. So currently, Zilker's onboarding team has decided to adopt different processes for different work models. So for remote employees, the HR manager, the IT teams, and the facilities manager are all working on a set of tasks. Whereas for resident employees, they have a complete different tasks in place. Because oftentimes for resident employees, you have to worry about providing them clearance and security access and so on. And the same way for hybrid employees, we have another set of tasks in place. So you can see that three different departments, namely HR, IT, and facilities, are coordinating together to bring each and every employee into Zilker. But the task they have can be really overwhelming because while it may seem like they have a process in place, it is not standardized. So because of this, the onboarding team at Zilker ran into a few business and technology challenges. So number one was that different departments, namely IT, HR, and facilities, were using different tools to communicate within themselves, right? And so when it comes to cross-department communication, because they didn't have a common tool in place, they were not able to transfer information properly. And the employees did not have proper visibility on what services are available. So when a new employee comes into organization, oftentimes they're not aware that they might be missing a few permissions, they might not have received certain resources and so on. So the only way to ensure that the employee is completely aware is to have a service catalog in place where they can go access and be aware of what services they can even ask for. And Zilker did not have this in place. And as the departments are working in tandem, they realized that the information they collect on behalf of the employees is often incomplete, which means there is a lot of back and forth conversations leading to unnecessary delay. And again, because the communication was not proper between teams, they had unnecessary delays. And like we just saw in this flow here, they didn't have a standard procedure in place. And this meant that they had inefficiencies in their entire process. So enter ServiceDesk Plus. How can ServiceDesk Plus help Zilker overcome its challenges? So first, using ServiceDesk Plus, you can extend service management beyond IT. Now, it's a general consumption that service management falls under IT, but when it comes to processes like onboarding employees, we have non-IT teams working as well. And ServiceDesk Plus will help you extend the capabilities of service management beyond IT and into other department-specific portals. You can also deliver better end user experience by setting up a self-service portal where users can request and even view the services they can ask for. And using ServiceDesk Plus, you can build a contextualized chatbot which will help your end users service themselves. And you can also set up a completely personalized catalog customized to your organization with various dynamic forms. And finally, you can use automations and visual workflows to ensure that the services requested are being delivered on time. So we'll now go ahead and see how each and every one of these benefits can be configured. So first, we're going to see how using service displays, you can extend service management beyond IT. So Zilker has three departments working in tandem, right? And so what Zilker needs is an organization-wide portal which will deliver all critical information and services. So using service displays, you can create purpose-built instance for every enterprise department. And you can also quickly switch between these instances. So let me take you to the application and show you how this can be configured. So I am logged into ServiceDesk Plus Cloud, and I am logged in as the administrator. So I have access to, I have the highermost access available. So here you can see that we have multiple service desks listed, and these are called instances. So an instance is in its basic form a service desk where you can go configure templates, automations, workflows, and so on. And all these instances are managed under the ESM portal. Okay, so here it's a central console where you can access these instances. You can manage the users, you can manage the instance and user association as well. So to manage all this, you can go into ESM directory where you can configure your users, and here we have what is called a service disk instance. So you can configure or create more instances from here. So I'm going to simply create a new instance. So you can provide the name and description. You can add a URL name as well. So if you know the URL name of an instance, you can use it to quickly jump across instances. And you can select the type of instance to be created. And we can also specify the time zone for the users added under this instance. You can specify who is the owner of this instance. And finally, you can define the access permission. So this will determine which users will have access to this instance. So once you create, an instance will be listed. So here you can see that we have multiple instances created already. If you want to add in users to an instance, you can configure users and add them from this area here. Now, let's say I want to go into an instance. I'm going to quickly jump into this HR instance. And you can see that we have all the modules like request, problem, change listed here. We have the setup tab where you can configure the instance. So if you want to configure details about the instance, you can go to this instance configurations and set them up. Now, if I want to quickly jump into another instance, I can use this icon here and select the instance where I can go. Or if I know the instance URL, I can manipulate the URL here, and I will be redirected to the relevant instance. So you can see that we just jumped from HR to IT help desk. So this is how you can switch across instances. Now, once you have an instance in place, the next step is ensuring that you have a way to deliver better end user experience using self-service portal. Now in Zilker, they have three departments, so they set up multiple instances for each department. And this instance is actually beneficial for technicians because they can come in and manage the tickets and tickets, problems, changes, assets, and so on. But for an end user, they don't need access to all of this. All they need is a place where they can communicate with the service desk and raise tickets, they can log issues, and so on. And this is achieved using self-service portal. So Zilker needs to create a self-service portal unique to each business department. And in ServiceDesk Plus, you can create and customize self-service portal. You can allow your users to manage their requests, access solutions, and so on. So we'll go ahead and see how you can configure a self-service portal. Now, a self-service portal is instance specific. So in each instance, you have to configure a portal which will be accessible for end users. To configure a portal, in the setup tab, go to requester portal, and you can jump into requester portal customization tab. So here we can create two types of self-service portals. One is you can give a very basic customization to it, where you can apply templates that are configured into the application. So we have a template applied already to to modify the template, click this icon here, and you can view the templates present. So you can apply any one of these predefined templates and the style will be applied to your self-service portal. You can also view the gallery where you can add different background images. You can modify the attributes present in this page. You can add canned widgets or use URL widgets to bring in information from any external application or web page. Now, widgets are actually what you're seeing here. So all these elements are called widgets, and they'll help you perform certain actions right within the self-service portal. So once you save and publish the changes, they will be applied to an end user. Now, once you've set up all the elements to be displayed, you can also manage the widgets by defining their layout, or you can go to preferences and say if you want your end users to view the navigation menu, the footer, and so on. So once you set all of this, you can save and publish. And if you go into an end user's login, this page will be displayed just the same. Now, this is a basic customization like I was talking about. We also have an advanced customization option available where you can design the self-service portal using Zoho Creator. So if you can quickly check out and style, you can see here that we have a much more interesting elements in place. You can add panels, you can add buttons, lists, and snippets as well. You can configure multiple layouts or colors, and basically you have much more options where you can play around, right? And you can also change the templates involved. These templates would be imported from Zoho Creator, and you can define the page properties if needed. Now we have applied a basic configuration, basic customization. So let me take you to an end user's login, and we'll see if it appears just the same. So I'm logging into an end user's login. So here, since I'm an end user, I cannot access ESM directory and so on, but I can go into a service desk, right? And once I go into a service desk, you can see that the home page is quite similar to the one we just configured, meaning this is exactly what I configured in my administrator's login. And here I can report issues, I can request for services, I can view the solutions available. I can also access any announcements that's made in my organization, track my assets, and so on. So this is how you can use self-service portal to build up better communication channel between users. And the next thing I want to talk about is how you can build an immersive contextualized chatbot experience for end users. Now, in the self-service portal, we have solutions, we have announcements, and other tools that can help your end users. But what would often really help end users is when they have a chatbot experience where they can quickly figure out or have their answers handed over to them, right? So this can be achieved using Zia's blended conversations. Now, Zia is an existing artificial intelligence bot which is owned by Zoho. So we might have spoken about Zia quite a lot because we really love Zia. But of late, we have introduced blended conversations, which we're really excited about since it allows users to craft their own conversational workflows. So you can provide multiple conversation parts, you can provide contextual information, and you can even allow your users to perform actions within Zia chatbots. So we'll now go ahead and see how you can configure Zia blended conversations. So going back into the setup page, Zia is present here, so we can find Zia chatbot here. And first, you need to enable blended conversations options here. And I don't think I have to tell this, but Zia can be configured only by administrators in English language setups, okay? And once you've enabled blended conversations, you can go to blended conversations tab. And here you can see that we have a number of conversations listed, right? So you can create a new conversation, and once you create a conversation, there'll be a very blank canvas displayed. Let me quickly delete this. Right, so you'll be taken to a blank canvas where it is called as conversation builder. So this is where you design how the conversation should happen, right? And if you click this icon here, you can add multiple blocks to your conversation. So we have response blocks and action blocks present. So response blocks are used to collect responses from end users, while action blocks are used to perform actions within the chatbot. So we have three types of response blocks. We have message blocks, which you can use to show messages to end users. Like you can tell them hello, hi, welcome, and so on. we have the info card, which again is used to display information but with images and buttons and more fine-tuned formats. And then we have question blocks. So you can ask questions and collect responses from users. And based on the type of response you're expecting, you can use different types of blocks. So you can use text blocks, you can use file block to collect documents or log files from end users. You can use a block to get feedback from your users and so on. And then we have choice blocks. So choice blocks are again to collect responses. So you can display a number of choices and have your users select one or more, right? And you can do this either as buttons or dynamic buttons, where instead of providing the choice beforehand, you can fetch the options dynamically from either within service displays or from external applications. For example, say you want your end users to update a request status. You can use dynamic buttons to fetch the request status configured in your application and display them as buttons. And when the user selects a button, the status will be updated accordingly. And then we have choice cards. So choice cards are again used to select an option. The only difference is here you provide images and buttons and much more formatting instead of just providing a single text. So these are all response blocks. We also have action blocks. So action blocks are used to again perform actions within a flow. And say you can add a jump block. So this will allow you to jump the conversation from one block to a completely different block or to a completely different flow. So you can skip certain dialogues in between using jump block. So for example, if you reach the end of a conversation, instead of just leaving your user hanging, you can add a jump block to redirect them to a different conversation. And then we can add fork block, which will allow you to add multiple pathways within the same flow. So based on certain predefined conditions and what conditions are being met, Zia would follow a certain path. You can also add operation block, which will allow you to perform basic arithmetic operations within the flow. To give you an example, say you want to calculate the purchase cost of an asset. So you can calculate the purchase cost from the PO. You can specify depreciation and the delivery cost and tax and everything, and have Zia calculate the actual cost for you. And finally, we have webhook blocks, which are used to either receive and display information from external applications, or you can use it to send information from Zia to an external application. Right? And there's one more thing I want to talk about in blended conversations, which are called variables. Now, variables are very important because they give you a personalized touch and also often used to add context into a conversation. So you can create local variables, and I don't think I have to tell you what variables mean. They're simply data placeholders. So you can store any information in a variable, and you can create local variables to add context, or you can create block variables. For example, let's say at the start of the conversation, I'm asking the users to enter their name, right? And I'm going to call this block as name block, and the block variable is also called name variable, and save this. And then let me say I want to display a message. So I'm going to say hi and welcome the user by their name. So I can simply use the block variable and save it. Now, if you preview the conversation, this is how it's likely to go. So the name variable is triggered, and I'm going to enter the name. And you can see that the info block is now displaying my name. So this is how you can give a personalized touch, and not just names, you can get any kind of response from your end users and repeat it back to them using variables. Let me take you to an existing flow. So once you configure a flow, you can simply publish it. So I'm going to take you an existing flow which is fully configured. And here you can see that we have multiple blocks added. We have a button block which will help you display two buttons, and based on the option selected, a particular flow will be followed. And here you can see we've used webhook block to fetch information and an info block to show the fetched information. We've also used a jump block here. So this is a jump block, and it is jumping to this area, which means once the conversation reaches the end, we jump to this block and continue from there, right? So how will this work in real time? So once you create a flow and you publish it, you can simply go to your Zia chatbot, and all of these flows will be listed as Zia actions. So let's, as the chatbot loads, let's just wait. Okay. So here it is. So we can see that the blended conversation has a name. You can simply either select, type the name, and it will be suggested, or you can view all actions and select from there. So once you select the action, the conversation will proceed as you configure. Okay, so I'm going to say I want to upgrade my VM plan. And you can see that the choice block is displaying two actions here. So I'm going to select this one. And you can see that a request is being created. So this is how blended conversations work. You can perform any action and completely customize it to your requirements. So I can click this here and I will be redirected to the relevant request page. So you can see that the request is created with the relevant details. So if I say yes, I'm happy, and the conversation comes to an end. So this is how blended conversations work. Now, coming on to a very critical topic is personalizing service catalogs with dynamic forms. Now, Zilker had a process in place, right? But the end users are not aware of how to ask for services or even aware of what services they can ask for. So you can set up all of this using service catalogs, and you can use templates to collect accurate information so that no information gaps are pending, right? So in ServiceDesk Plus, we can set up service catalogs, build templates, and associate SLAs, approvals, tasks, form rules, everything within a template. So we'll go ahead and see how this can be configured. So to set up templates, you can go into setup templates and forms. But since Zilker is talking about onboarding users, to set up an onboarding template, let's go into HR desk because that's where it all begins always. So in the HR desk, I am going to the setup tab. And just like how we saw in IT desk, we have templates and forms and service categories present. So the service category is simply a comprehensive list of all the services available. So when end users are logging in and they're requesting for a service, the category will be listed first. And when they select a category, all the available services will be listed beneath it. So I'm going to simply expand, and you can see that we have multiple templates under this category. You can create a new template. You can also view incident templates that are associated with this service category. So if you want to learn about configuring incident templates, you can check out a previous masterclass where we dealt with incident templates in detail. Now, when you create a service template, you'll be taken to a template configuration page. So I'm going to take you to an existing page. So this is how a template configuration page looks like. You have multiple fields and sections available. So if you want to add in more fields, you can simply drag and drop them. Or if you don't want them, you can simply remove them from the template. And if you want to set the field properties, you can make them mandatory, allow your requesters to view or set it. And you would notice that these fields are grouped into various blocks, and these are called sections. So again, you can define the section layouts as well. You can say if you want one or two columns. So here you can see a section with one column, while here there's a section with double columns. You can also modify the label orientation. You can say if you want the section to be collapsed or expanded by default. And if you want to add in more fields or sections, just go to the new fields tab, and we have all the field types available. You can simply drag and drop them and configure them as needed. If you want to add sections, you can drag this entity here and you'll be able to configure sections. So I'm not going to create one now. So we'll just remove it. And you can see that as I go down, we have what is called a service cost. Now, cost details. So enabling cost details will help you track the cost of each service as a user is creating a request. And you can also show these template to requesters by enabling this option. If this option is not enabled, then the end users will not be able to access this template or access requests created by this template. And if you've enabled it, you can also restrict the template to certain user groups or certain technician groups. So this way you can ensure that only users with the relevant permissions are able to access the template. Now going back up, once you've configured everything, you can go into requester view, where just like technicians view, you can decide how you want your end users to view the template. You can set all the relevant fields needed, and then you can jump into your resource info. Now, oftentimes requesting for services means you are requesting some kind of resource from your end, from your organization. So you can add the relevant questions here, and you can categorize these questions again in various blocks. So to add a resource block, simply click this button here, provide a name and description, and you can add the questions, either an existing question or a new question. So if you want to add in a new question, you can create like a yes or no question. You can create select box question, which is like a drop down. Very simple to the drop down you're seeing on my screen this exact moment. So this is a select box. And then we have checkbox questions where you can enable checkboxes, or a text box question where you can collect any information from your end user. And if you want, you can enable cost details. So this will be displayed cumulatively to end users as they are selecting the options, right? So if you don't want to show cost also, it's fine, it will be completely hidden. But if you show cost, end users will be able to track the expense they are currently incurring in the company. Let me take you to an existing resource question. So here we have an existing block available. So you can see here we have a select box question, and here we have a checkbox. And if I could edit it, you can see that we have enabled advanced layout. So this will allow you to add a description or images to each option. You can also add cost, because we have added cost here. You can allow your users to select just one option or multiple option again, right? So if we could edit an option, you would see that we have added description, we have added images. You can add multiple images to give your end users on what kind of resource they can expect. Okay, so now that we have dealt with resource info, the next thing we're going to talk about is approvals. So because users are requesting resources that are costing the company, you have to ensure that you have proper approvals in place to even provide those resources. So you can build these approvals right into the template. You can add multiple levels of approvals. You can say manage approvals. You can add up to 5 stages, and in each stage you can either add an organization role as the approval or an approval user. So an organization role is predefined, so you have multiple roles present. So any user who's assigned to this role will be able to provide the approval to this request as long as they have access to the request. And say you have added group head role as the approver. So if the user happens to even leave the organization, the new user who is assigned to the role will be able to complete the approval. So this is one benefit of having an organization role as your approver. We then have approval users too. So these are specific users who have permissions to approve service requests. So you can see that we have a user here by name configured. He is an approval user. So you can add multiple levels of approval, like I just said. And then we have SLAs. So since services are often demanded within a specific period of time, and SLA will help you give your users a good idea of when they can expect the service to be provided. So you can associate existing SLAs or create them from here, but we're going to see about SLAs in a while, so I'm going to gloss over this for now. You can also add tasks. Basically, you can break down the work involved into various tasks, add it to different users. So a while ago in the presentation, we saw how each department had multiple tasks, right? So you can configure all of those tasks right within template, and you can set them to trigger manually or automatically. And finally, we have field and form rules or form rules. So these will give you a dynamic nature to your template. So imagine we just saw this technician view tab here, this gigantic form with so many fields, right? So this can be quite overwhelming or time consuming to fill this information out. And if a user wants to say onboard an employee, they have to come and each and every time fill out this information with no idea of what is relevant and not relevant. So to set the context in place and to save users time, you can use form rules to hide fields, show fields, mandate important fields, and clear out unnecessary field values, right? So to do that, you can simply create a new rule, provide the name and description. You can choose to apply the rule when the form is loading, or when a field value is modified, or when the form is submitted. You can set the condition of when the rule should be applied if needed, or you can disable it. And if you disable it, the form rule will be applied to all requests created using this template. And then you can set the action to be done. Like I said, you can hide fields, you can show fields, you can enable or disable fields, you can clear options, you can show tasks or hide them, trigger tasks, and so on. You can also choose to hide or show resource section, or you can use execute custom script action to just write a script file with a desired action, upload it, and then execute it every time the form rule is met. Now, let me take you to an end user's login. I'm sorry, let me take you to a technician's login itself and show you how the form appears when you're trying to log a request, right? So let's go here, and let me jump to the HR desk because we've configured the template there. And let me create a request. So you can see that the service catalog is displayed here with the category listed. So I'm going to find out the template I need. Yeah, here it is. And you can see that even though I selected exactly the right template, this form is completely different from what I configured in the template because there are a number of fields missing. Now this is the work of form roles, right? So the form roles have hidden for me the fields that I don't really need to worry about for now. So I'm just going to go ahead and provide the relevant details alone. And I'm going to say that the employee I'm currently onboarding is a resident employee. And now you can see a section appearing out of the blue. And if I say that this employee is vaccinated, then I can see more fields are appearing, right? This is entirely the worker field and form rules. So this is how you provide a dynamic nature to your templates or your forms. So let me just provide a name for this user. And let's provide all the relevant details. So I'm going to say their office schedule and so on. And let's say I want them to have a Dell laptop, right? You can see the service cost is the resource cost is displayed here. And if you scroll back up, you can see that the total cost incurred to the company is calculated here. So this gives you a very good like shopping cart experience. So like how you can add items to your cart, check out the price before you confirm. The same way you can check out the cost incurred to the company and understand the process involved, and then choose to save the request or not. And we can also add SLAs. So since I've in my setup I've allowed my end user to select the SLA, so the technician or even the end users can select the relevant SLA. So since this is going to be a standard onboarding process, I'm going to select the first one, and here I'm informed pretty well on when I can expect this service to be provided, right? So let me now save the request. Okay, there's a mandatory field here. Let me save this. And this request is logged with all the relevant details. So this is how my catalog and my template work to ensure that all the important details are collected using fields and displayed properly using form rules. And the last thing to ensure is that once your end users and technicians have properly requested for a service and all the information is in place, you need to make sure that you have a way to deliver the requested services in a timely manner. So for this, Zilker needs to create a process blueprint in place. And this is achieved using a request lifecycle, which will help you standardize the entire process. And you can also then go ahead and set up certain no-code automations, which will help you speed up the service delivery. Now, earlier in our slide, we saw multiple tasks in Zilka's onboarding program, right? So we have different processes in place. Now we'll go ahead and see how you can unify and standardize this entire process using request lifecycle. So in the application, let me quickly jump over to my setup tab. And here I have life cycles, right? So we have a life cycle present already. You can create a new one, but once you create a life cycle, you will be taken to a blank canvas where you can set the request life cycles flow. And you can see we have number of blocks here. So these blocks are called, these white color blocks are called statuses, which refer to the request statuses configured in your application. And these act as the milestones in the request life. And then we have transitions, which are these green colored blocks, and they occur, they refer to the state when the request is in between statuses. And during these transitions, you can set many actions to happen, and we'll see about that in detail. So first, when I have configured when a request starts and it reaches the open status, then we can process it depending on the employee's work model, right? So if it's a hybrid employee, we take this pathway. If it's a remote employee, we go this way, and so on. But what if we don't have the relevant information? In which case, we can take a quick detour to on hold status and until the full details are received. Once the details are present, we can then go back to open status and continue from there. So these transitions, we have some things called as a common transition. So this means that oftentimes when the request is in a transition, you can only go forward from there. You cannot jump to a different status. But with common transitions, you can jump to different statuses and interconnect uh, your flow. So now when my request reaches this transition, you can either go to on hold status or you can go to any of the other statuses linked here. So as I was saying, we also have other actions within each transition. So here I say for hybrid employee, I have set conditions in before, during, and after rules, right? So in before rules, I can define the scope of the user who should even be able to view this transition. So what will basically happen is every time a request is created, the transitions show up in the request details page. So if I could go quickly, these are your transitions, and they force your employees to only follow a pre-configured flow. They cannot move the request to the desired status. They have to follow the right path, right? And unless the transition is shown, the request will not move to a certain status. So you can limit who can select a transition and perform those actions by defining the scope here. You can also set a criteria in place. I've said that if the work model is hybrid, then the hybrid transition can be shown. Or if the work model is resident, then the resident transition is shown, right? And then we have during rules where you can configure much more actions. So once a user selects a transition and the request starts to proceed, then you can execute certain actions, like you can mandate fields, or you can configure rule sets to either update a field value or halt the request in a certain transition. For example, let's say that the request is created with service cost beyond $5,000, which is out of the scope of the company's operations. In which case, you can abort the process and you can provide the relevant message. So, unless the service cost is resolved, this request will not proceed anymore. And then we have after rules where you can configure other actions to be performed. So, here, for example, we saw in this flow here that for hybrid employees, we have a set of tasks present. So you can see that we have configured all of those tasks in after rules. So once a hybrid employee is processed and they reach the processing status, then these tasks will be triggered directly via request lifecycle. Now, we've talked about how in Zilker multiple departments are working together, right? So once we process an employee in the HR side, we are then going ahead and notifying the facilities and IT team as well. So here I have configured an after rule to using custom functions to create the same ticket in the other instances. So I've said that when the request reaches this particular, when the request reaches this particular transition, if we could go to the rule, I have set a custom function to be executed, right? And I can also set other actions like sending a notification, adding tasks and webhooks, and so on. So what happens when this custom function is executed in real time? Let's go ahead and check it out. So in this request details page, which we just created, we have two transitions like I just showed you. And since all details are present, I'm going to say that they are resident employee. And then you can see that the request moves to processing resident employee status, just like we configured here. And from here, we have only one transition present, which is notifying the IT and facilities team. So I'm going to select that. I have been asked to provide the mandatory details. And now if you run into your IT or facilities desk, you will see that this request is duplicated there. Moreover, I have also added certain fields that will help me quickly jump across instances. So if I could select this, I will be redirected into my IT portal. And you can see that the same request is duplicated in the IT portal with all the details um, present. So this will now help my IT team proceed with the request and no information is missing, and they can also go ahead and add approvals, inform their stakeholders and so on. So this is how a request lifecycle will help you standardize the process in place. Now, the next thing, last thing I want to talk about is how you can speed up service delivery using automations. So we have certain automations in place like triggers, SLAs, business rules, and notification rules, which in tandem with request lifecycle will help you deliver the requested service smoothly. So since we are in IT desk, I'm just going to take you to the setup tab. Now, automations are present in this block. So first we'll see about business rules, which are automation rules that dictate how a request or what kind of request should even be entertained in your service desk. So when a request is created, business rules will help you ensure that the request uh, is in line with your business operations, right? So again, just like how we saw in RLC, let's say a user is creating a service request where the service cost is beyond $5,000. In which case, you can use a business rule to abort the process completely. And while in RLC, a request would be created and can be aborted halfway, which means the request would be paused in a certain status. A business rule will prevent the request from being created at all unless the issue is resolved. Right? And you can also set the condition when the business rule should be applied. You can set the time when it should be applied or the event when the business rule should be applied and so on. And you can execute other actions as well, like sending notifications. You can execute custom functions or perform field updates using business rules. And similar to business rules, we also have triggers. And triggers will help you again modify the data in a request, but triggers are applied to requests that are already created, right? So business rule handles all incoming requests, while triggers handles requests that are in your service desk. So using a trigger, you can basically trigger actions when a condition is met. Again, you can specify the condition here. You can say when the trigger should be applied or what time it should be applied and so on. And you can select the actions like custom functions, tasks, and so on. You can create and trigger tasks after a request is created. You can make webhook calls. You can execute timers as well. So timers will help you apply actions repetitively on a request. So for example, let's say that when a request is created and a certain condition is met, then I want the request to wait in my service desk for 3 days until an action happens. And meanwhile, service desk plus should remind my technicians once a day with an email notification. Now, this is quite a complex use case. So what I can do with triggers is that I can say, well, the request should wait for 3 days, and meanwhile I can configure actions to be sent. So I said I want to send a notification, so I'm going to send a notification every day. So, which means that the first day, the service desk plus will send this notification, and then I can configure repeat, where I can repeat the same action for 2 more days. So, for a total of 3 days, notification will be sent to my users repetitively. And uh, if the action happens, then the request can either be aborted or ends naturally, right? And you can also configure multiple actions. You can configure other actions using like field updates, creating tasks, and so on. So this is how timers work. So other than business rules and timers, we also have service level agreements, which we just saw in a template. So to create service level agreements, you can click new SLA, or you can go to an existing SLA. Just for the sake of this demo, I'm going to show you an existing SLA and show you how it is configured. So here we have set the condition as based on the template, right? You can also add more conditions if needed. And here is where you set your agreement in place. So you have agreed to respond to your users in a specific within a specific time period and fulfill the request within another time period. And you can choose to apply this SLA irrespective of operational hours. You can also enable escalation. So if a SLA time is violated, basically if you didn't respond or fulfill within the agreed upon time, You can escalate the ticket to a different owner, to a different user. You can send notifications, you can update fields of the ticket, and so on. And you can save it. So in our setup, I've showed you how users can, or technicians can, select the SLA while they are creating a request, right? So basically, to enable that, you can just create multiple SLAs and then go into general settings, and under advanced portal settings, you can say if you want your SLAs to be applied based on the condition match, or if you want your users to select the SLA. And if you allow your users to select the SLA, then while the request is being created, if there are SLAs associated with the template, the user will be able to select the relevant SLA. And finally, we have notification rules. So notification rules will help you basically stay in touch with your stakeholders and keep them informed of the latest happenings in your service desk. So when an action happens in a request, like the request is edited, resolved, closed, you can send a notification through email, SMS, or in-application notifications. And you can send this to technicians as well and other stakeholders. If you want to modify the content in each notification, you can simply customize the template, add in relevant details, and click save. So when this event occurs, ServiceDesk Plus will automatically inform the relevant user. So we've come to the end. I hope the session was very helpful. Continue adding in your questions to the questions panel, and our expert on call will be taking them. Meanwhile, I also want to talk to you about a few more resources we have. We have an admin guide and user guide hosted, so they will help you completely understand how you can configure Service Desk Plus for your technicians and your end users. We also have release notes published, which inform you about the latest enhancements we're introducing in Service Desk Plus Cloud. We then have a huge number of product videos in our YouTube channel. You can check out our previous masterclass videos, or you can even check out these upcoming videos, and which will be published then and there. We then have a community present where you can contact your peers, and a support portal where you can get in touch with the support team. And finally, at any point in time, if you have any question, feel free to drop an email to hello@servicedisplus.com. Thank you very much for sticking us with the end. And as you exit the session, you will be requested a feedback form. So kindly let us know what you think of the session, what we can improve on, and what you would like to know more from us, right? And if you have any further questions or doubts, feel free to drop an email to hello@servicedisplus.com, and we would love to help you out. So until we meet next time, this is Steffi Benjamin signing off on behalf of ManageEngine.